I knew something was wrong the moment the champagne glass touched my lips. Not from the stares around me, but from my phone lighting up with a message that sent ice through my spine. You're fired. We need someone who actually knows how to work. Right there at the gala I'd helped organize, and across from me, my boss's biggest rival sat grinning, watching my world crumble in real time. My name is Samantha Blake, and at 35, I'd built my reputation as the strategic mind behind Virion Analytics' most successful ventures. The Magnolia Grand Ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the calculated laughter of finance's elite. But I barely noticed. I'd arrived exhausted, running on 3 hours of sleep after closing a deal that would net the company millions. The burgundy gown I wore cost more than most people's monthly rent, but it was armor in this world where appearance dictated respect. I'd learned that lesson early. Dress like you belong, even when every bone in your body aches from the weight of carrying a company on your shoulders. Gregory Price, our CEO, held court near the bar, his silver hair gleaming under the lights as he regaled investors with stories of his latest triumph. The deal I'd orchestrated, the strategy I'd designed, the sleepless nights I'd endured, all erased with his practiced smile and firm handshake. I'd grown used to it. That was the price of being indispensable, yet invisible. I found my assigned seat at table 7, strategically placed to showcase Virion's top talent to potential clients. The name card read, Director of Strategic Operations, a title that barely scratched the surface of what I actually did. Budget forecasts, risk assessments, client acquisitions. Damage control when Gregory's ego wrote checks his competence couldn't cash. I was the ghost in the machine, keeping everything running while he took the bows. The champagne arrived, and I lifted the glass, catching my reflection in its golden surface. Dark circles hidden under concealer, smile practiced and professional. Just another night of playing the game. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Gregory. Strange, he was 50 feet away, still performing for his audience. I glanced down, expecting some last-minute instruction about schmoozing a particular investor. Effective immediately, your services are no longer required at Virion Analytics. You're fired. We need someone who actually knows how to work. Security will collect your keycard Monday. The words blurred, then sharpened into crystal clarity. The champagne glass trembled in my hand, but I set it down with deliberate control. Around me, conversations continued, oblivious to the earthquake that had just shattered my world. Across the table, Julian Cross watched with an expression I couldn't quite read. CEO of Pinnacle Venture Group, Gregory's most despised rival. They'd been circling each other like sharks for years, each trying to dominate the financial analytics market. Julian's presence at our table was deliberate, a power play in their endless chess match. But his smile wasn't meant for Gregory. Those steel-gray eyes were fixed on me, on my phone, on the way my knuckles had gone white gripping the edge of the table. He'd seen the text. Somehow, impossibly, he knew. Interesting evening, isn't it, Ms. Blake? Julian's voice cut through the ambient chatter, smooth as aged whiskey. I met his gaze, forcing my face into the same mask I'd worn for 5 years at Virion. Every gala has its surprises, Mr. Cross. He raised his own champagne, and in that gesture, I saw something that chilled me more than Gregory's betrayal. Anticipation. As if he'd been waiting for this moment. Planning for it. The realization hit like ice water. This wasn't just about Gregory's ego or my being too competent for comfort. This was orchestrated. And Julian Cross, sitting across from me with that knowing smile, was either the conductor or had front row seats to my execution. The champagne bubbled mockingly in my glass, untouched, as I sat at a gala I'd helped plan. Wearing a dress bought with a salary I no longer earned, fired by a man whose success I'd built, while his enemy watched my downfall with satisfaction. The evening had just begun. I excused myself to the powder room, each step measured and graceful despite the tremor in my chest. The marble floors reflected my steady gait. Years of practice had taught me to never show weakness in these shark-infested waters. Inside the sanctuary of the empty restroom, I gripped the sink and stared at my reflection. The woman looking back at me was a stranger. Not because of the shock, I'd weathered corporate storms before, but because for the first time in 5 years, I saw myself clearly. The sacrifices, the 60-hour weeks, the relationships I'd let wither while building Gregory's empire. All for a text message dismissal at a party I'd organized. I pulled up the message again, searching for some explanation beyond the cruel brevity. Nothing. Just those cutting words designed to humiliate. Gregory knew I'd be here, surrounded by the industry elite. He'd chosen this moment deliberately. 5 years. I'd saved Virion from bankruptcy twice. When their previous analytics model failed spectacularly, costing 3 major clients, I'd rebuilt the entire system from scratch. When Gregory's reckless expansion into Asian markets nearly tanked us, I'd negotiated the partnerships that kept us afloat. Every quarterly report that exceeded expectations had my invisible fingerprints all over it. But I'd committed the unforgivable sin. I'd become too essential. Gregory needed me, and he hated needing anyone. Worse, the board knew it. The investors knew it. Everyone except the public knew that Samantha Blake was the real engine behind Virion's success. My phone buzzed. Marcus, my former colleague who'd left for a startup last year. Heard the news. He's been planning this for weeks. Hired your replacement, his nephew. Call me. So that was it. Nepotism wrapped in a power play. Gregory had waited until I'd closed the Hartfield deal, until the quarter's numbers were secured, then discarded me like yesterday's newspaper. I straightened my spine, touched up my lipstick with a steady hand. The shock was crystallizing into something colder, sharper. Not rage. Rage was hot and reckless. This was different. This was ice forming over a deep lake, smooth and treacherous. Returning to the ballroom, I navigated back to my table with renewed purpose. Julian Cross still sat there, now engaged in conversation with a Bloomberg reporter. He glanced up as I approached, and something passed between us, an acknowledgement of the game board shifting. I took my seat and finally sipped the champagne. It tasted like possibility. Ms. Blake, Julian said, smoothly disengaging from the reporter. I heard about the Hartfield acquisition. Impressive structuring. The risk mitigation strategy was particularly elegant. He knew. Of course he knew. Julian Cross didn't become Gregory's primary rival by missing details. Thank you, I replied, voice neutral. Though I'm sure Gregory explained his vision for the deal quite thoroughly at the bar. Julian's smile widened fractionally. Oh, I'm certain he did. But vision and execution are different animals, aren't they? One requires imagination, the other requires intelligence. Around us, the Gala continued its orchestrated dance. Deals whispered over canapes, alliances forged between courses. Gregory still held court, unaware that his discarded weapon sat 20 feet away, being courted by his enemy. Enjoy your evening, Ms. Blake, Julian said, sliding a business card across the table with practiced subtlety. I have a feeling your schedule might be opening up soon. The card was simple, elegant, just his name and private number. No email, no office line. This was personal. I palmed it without looking, tucked it into my clutch. I always enjoy these gatherings, Mr. Cross. You never know when circumstances might change. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of practiced smiles and empty conversations. I played my part perfectly, the successful executive enjoying her triumph. No one suspected that I'd been professionally executed between the appetizer and main course. But with each passing minute, the ice inside me grew thicker, more impenetrable. Gregory had made a calculation that I would crumble, disappear quietly, too humiliated to fight back. He'd forgotten that he wasn't the only one who knew how to play this game. I'd built his kingdom. I knew every weakness in its foundation. The champagne glass emptied. I set it down with quiet finality. The woman who'd walked into this gala was dead, fired by text message like a disposable intern. What remained was something far more dangerous, someone with nothing left to lose and everything to gain. The next morning, I stood outside Pinnacle Venture Group's gleaming towers at 8:47 a.m. I'd dressed deliberately, the charcoal Armani suit that Gregory had once said made me look too authoritative. Perfect. Julian's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Vera, greeted me with knowing professionalism. Mr. Cross is expecting you. Ms. Blake. Top floor. The elevator ride gave me time to center myself. I'd spent the night dissecting every vulnerability in Virion's operation. Not out of spite, I was beyond such petty emotions. This was surgery, and I was preparing to cut with precision. Julian's office occupied the entire northwest corner of the building, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city like a conquered territory. He stood with his back to me, hands clasped behind him, studying the view. You knew it was coming, I said without preamble. He turned, that calculating smile already in place. I suspected. Gregory's insecurity has been reaching critical mass for months. You were too bright a star in his limited galaxy. And now you want to collect me for your constellation? No. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. I want to offer you something far more interesting than employment. I sat, crossing my legs with deliberate calm. I'm listening. Julian poured 2 glasses of what looked like very expensive scotch, despite the early hour. Gregory Price has been a thorn in my side for 3 years. Competitive thorns I can respect, but he's something worse. He's incompetent. His company survives on the foundation you built, and now he's kicked out the cornerstone. Flattery won't. I'm not flattering you, Samantha. I'm stating facts. He slid a folder across the desk. Virion's real numbers, not the dressed-up versions Gregory presents to the board. I opened it, though I didn't need to. I knew those numbers better than my own heartbeat, but seeing them laid out by a competitor's analysis was illuminating. Julian had been watching, studying, waiting. You want me to share insider information, I said. I want you to help me bury him. No pretense now, just cold ambition. Legally, ethically, if we're being generous with the term, but thoroughly. I closed the folder. What makes you think I'd betray 5 years of... He betrayed you first. By text. At a gala you organized. Julian's voice hardened. I'm offering you the chance to return the favor with interest. The silence stretched between us, taut with possibility. Finally, I leaned back. Gregory's been cooking the books. Not dramatically, he's too paranoid for that. But the Q3 projections are built on contracts that don't exist yet. He's been counting provisional agreements as confirmed revenue. Julian's eyes sharpened. Go on. The new analytics platform everyone's raving about, it has a critical flaw in its risk assessment algorithm. I've been patching it manually for 6 months. Without those patches, it'll start generating false positives within weeks. Gregory doesn't know. He never bothered to understand the technical details. And you can replicate the platform correctly. I built it. What Virion has is my beta version with training wheels. The real system exists only up here. I tapped my temple. Julian stood, walking to the window. What do you want, Samantha? Revenge? Money? A corner office with a better view? I want ownership. The words came out firm, certain. Not a job, not a salary. I want to build something that's mine. You want to destroy Gregory? Fine. But I'm not doing it to become another corporate soldier. I'm done building empires for other people. He turned, studying me with new interest. A partnership. Then, you bring me Virion's head on a platter, and I give you the resources to build your own kingdom within Pinnacle. Equal stake in whatever I create, full autonomy, and my name on the door. You're negotiating hard for someone who was unemployed 12 hours ago. I stood, smoothing my skirt. I'm negotiating appropriately for someone who knows where all the bodies are buried at your biggest competitor. Gregory didn't just fire an employee, Julian. He fired the person who knows every password, every vulnerability, every lie he's told the board. The predatory smile that spread across Julian's face would have frightened me yesterday. Today, it looked like opportunity. There's one more thing, I said. I won't steal intellectual property or break any laws. What I'm offering is my expertise and knowledge of systemic weaknesses. If you want a corporate spy, find another disgruntled employee. I don't want a spy, Samantha. I want an architect, someone who can build something better while the old structure crumbles under its own weight. He extended his hand. Partners? I shook it, feeling the weight of transformation in that simple gesture. Partners? Now, let me tell you exactly how we're going to dismantle Gregory Price's house of cards. The morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the office. In that light, I saw my future clearly, not as someone's discarded asset, but as an architect of destruction and creation in equal measure. Gregory had no idea what he'd unleashed with that text message. But he would learn. They all would. The war began with code, not bullets. In Pinnacle's Secured Development Lab, I worked 18-hour days rebuilding what I'd originally created for Virion. But this time, I built it right. No shortcuts, no patches, no compromises necessitated by Gregory's impatience and budget constraints. The platform I christened Aegis was everything Virion's system pretended to be. A true predictive analytics engine that could assess market risks with surgical precision. You're sure Gregory can't claim ownership? Julian asked during one of his frequent visits to check progress. I pulled up the contract I'd signed 5 years ago. Gregory's arrogance is remarkably consistent. He updated my salary 3 times but never touched the IP clauses. Everything I developed before joining Virion remains my intellectual property. Aegis is built on my pre-Virion foundational work. And their current system is a derivative I created after joining. Completely different architecture. I turned back to the screens. Gregory always said details were for the help. He's about to learn why details matter. The first phase was subtle. I reached out to former colleagues still trapped in Virion's dysfunctional ecosystem, careful to avoid anything that could be construed as poaching. Just friendly check-ins. How's the platform performing? Any issues with the risk algorithms? Oh, that's strange. The manual patches should prevent that. Within 2 weeks, the whispers started. Virion's star platform was generating inconsistencies. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make portfolio managers nervous. Gregory, predictably, blamed the tech team. The tech team, lacking my institutional knowledge, floundered. Meanwhile, I orchestrated Aegis's debut with surgical precision. No grand announcements, no press releases. Instead, I arranged discrete demonstrations for select clients, the kind who valued accuracy over flashy presentations. This is remarkable, breathed Harrison Chen from Meridian Investments, studying Aegis's prediction models. It caught the Eurozone fluctuation 3 days before anyone else saw it coming. Yo, that's the difference between true predictive modeling and sophisticated guesswork, I replied. Professional satisfaction warming my voice. Aegis doesn't just analyze data, it understands patterns. The beauty was in the timing. Each Aegis demonstration coincided with a fresh Virion platform glitch. Not because I was sabotaging anything, I'd meant what I said about staying legal. But without my constant manual corrections, their system was revealing its true nature. Marcus, my insider friend, kept me informed over encrypted messages. Gregory's in full meltdown mode. Fired 2 developers yesterday. Boards asking questions. Phase 2 required more finesse. Julian and I commissioned an independent white paper on risk assessment platforms through a respected think tank. The paper, authored by Stanford economists, didn't mention Virion by name. It didn't have to. The methodological flaws it highlighted were identical to the ones I'd been patching for months. Platforms utilizing recursive dependency loops without proper variance controls pose significant systematic risks. The paper warned, every financial journalist worth their salt recognized the description. I watched Virion's stock price from my new office, corner suite, my name on the door as promised. Each dip represented another investor losing faith, another client questioning their choice. Gregory appeared on CNBC, all bluster and denial, but his silver tongue couldn't code away structural flaws. You're enjoying this, Julian observed, finding me working late one evening. I'm enjoying building something properly, I corrected, though we both knew it was more than that. their satisfaction in watching incompetence face consequences. The third week brought unexpected turbulence. 3 major clients announced they were reassessing their analytics partnerships. Translation: they wanted out of their Virion contracts. My demonstrations had been persuasive, but more importantly, they'd highlighted what those clients had been missing. "Blake's behind this," Gregory's voice roared through a recording Marcus sent me. "That bitter witch is trying to destroy everything I built." Everything he built. Even now, even as his empire crumbled, he couldn't acknowledge who'd really constructed his success. I scheduled Aegis's official launch for exactly 1 month after the gala. Symbolic timing, perhaps, but symbols mattered in this world. The press release was simple. Pinnacle Venture Group announces revolutionary analytics platform. Industry veterans take notice. The industry did more than notice. Within hours, my calendar filled with meeting requests. Forbes wanted an interview. The Wall Street Journal wanted a demo. Everyone wanted to know about the platform that was quietly outperforming the market leaders. Samantha Blake, the architect behind Aegis, brings decades of experience in risk analysis and predictive modeling. The articles would read, no mention of Virion, no acknowledgement of the past, just the future, gleaming and precise as the code I'd written. Gregory called my personal cell at midnight, his voice slurred with alcohol or rage or both. "You think you've won? I'll sue you into oblivion. Theft of trade secrets, breach of contract." "Gregory," I interrupted, voice calm as winter morning. "Check your contracts, check your documentation, check your patents. Then call your lawyer and ask them to explain what intellectual property actually means." I hung up before he could respond. There was code to review, a platform to perfect. The war was far from over, but the first battles had been decisive. Aegis rose while Virion stumbled, and somewhere in his executive suite, Gregory Price was learning what happened when you discarded your foundation. The view from my corner office was spectacular, but I barely noticed. I was too busy building. The first cracks didn't show up in the headlines. They appeared in silence, a rescheduled client call, a paused contract negotiation, an unexpected LinkedIn update from a mid-level manager at Virion that read, "Exploring new opportunities." By Monday morning, 2 major clients, both of whom I knew personally from countless late nights and last-minute pivots, quietly hit the brakes on their ongoing talks with Virion. One was a global insurance conglomerate I had personally brought into Gregory's pipeline last year. The other was a fintech startup Marcus's team had targeted for months. They didn't need explanations. In this industry, hesitation speaks louder than accusations. A slight shift in confidence can rot a deal from the inside out. And Gregory didn't even know it yet. But I did. Julian's team and I had a rule, one I'd insisted on: no fingerprints. We weren't going to leak documents. We weren't going to smear Virion publicly. We weren't even going to whisper in the wrong ears. We were going to predict. And that started with a white paper. I spent 3 nights in a small, soundproofed war room on Pinnacle's 43rd floor drafting bullet points for a policy report commissioned by a neutral think tank. The topic? Ethical risks of synthetic data in AI compliance systems. I didn't write the report itself. That job fell to an academic who owed Julian a favor. But every argument, every stat, every cautionary case study came from my mouth. We didn't name Virion. We didn't have to. The paper dropped on Tuesday morning. By noon, 5 major industry analysts had reposted it. By 3 p.m., investor chat groups buzzed with questions about certain overhyped compliance platforms. By 6 p.m., Virion's CTO had gone conspicuously silent on Slack. And still, Gregory hadn't connected the dots. He was too busy prepping for a keynote in Dallas, rehearsing fake off-the-cuff jokes about disruptive vision. The man didn't realize the floor beneath him was starting to tilt. By Wednesday, the first internal leak surfaced, a screenshot from Virion's private employee forum. The post read, "Let's not feed into rumors. We remain confident in our leadership and product roadmap." Translation: there were rumors, and someone inside was already leaking. I didn't leak anything. I didn't have to. Fear leaks on its own when the right people feel the temperature change. Meanwhile, I stayed exactly where I'd been since this started, alone in the vault. No windows, no distractions, a whiteboard, 2 monitors, and a secure server. Aegis had evolved beyond a project. It was a product. And it didn't just work, it dominated. I rebuilt my original Risk engine from scratch, slicing out the bloated features Gregory's team had stapled on for show. The new model flagged risk clusters 3 times faster than Virion's flagship platform. It ran with 94% anomaly detection accuracy, compared to their pathetic 68%. Every single line of code was mine. And mine alone. Julian checked in twice that week. Briefly. By Thursday, he didn't need to. He'd seen the system work. He trusted me to finish the job. But even as Aegis took shape, a strange knot tightened in my chest. A sharp, unwelcome pang. Not for Gregory, not for Virion. For someone else. Emily Novak. I hadn't thought of her in days. A junior analyst I'd mentored without meaning to. A sharp kid who used to hover outside my office with questions no one else had time to answer. I remembered her nervous energy, her 2 eager nods, the way she'd light up when something finally clicked. She was still at Virion, still part of the ship I was quietly setting fire to. I pulled up her profile out of curiosity. Same headshot from onboarding, same soft smile. Still listed under Business Intelligence Associate Analyst. I wondered if she'd taken my desk, if she was sitting in the same seat I once occupied, watching the walls close in, not knowing why the floor felt like it was shifting. Not everyone deserves to burn when the building collapses. But that's not how fallout works. Fire doesn't care who started it. It only cares what's dry enough to catch. Thursday morning started with a message I hadn't expected. No subject line. No sender I recognized. Just a link. It took me half a second to recognize the video thumbnail. Gregory, on stage at the Dallas Tech Forum. Microphone clipped to his lapel, mid-sentence. His eyes were wide, his collar damp with sweat. I hit play. The first 30 seconds were painful to watch. A reporter had lobbed a softball question about emerging AI risks. Gregory laughed, too loud, too sharp, then launched into a rambling monologue about pioneering boldness and disrupting outdated compliance models. At second 34, his voice cracked. At second 36, the room went dead silent. I didn't need to finish the clip. I already knew how this would play out. I'd seen it too many times in closed-door meetings when Gregory lost control of a conversation. But this wasn't behind closed doors. This was on record, in front of an audience packed with journalists and industry analysts. And someone had sent it to me. I stared at the paused frame. Gregory, lips parted, eyes darting. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. By noon. A second video leaked, this one from inside Virion itself. An internal town hall streamed to employees across 3 continents. In the clip, a junior developer, face half-lit by bad conference room lighting, asked if layoffs were coming. Gregory didn't answer. He didn't even try. He just ended the meeting. By evening, the clip had circulated through private Slack groups I used to belong to. Virion's leadership was bleeding credibility from every pore. Julian called me that night. "You've done enough," he said. "We could wrap this here. Let Aegis roll out in 2 weeks. We'd still win." He was right. We didn't have to push harder. The market was already turning. Gregory was already sinking. But I wasn't done. Because there was still one card left. One thread I'd tucked into place 2 years earlier. A clause? Buried in a vendor agreement, Gregory's chief strategy officer, Elise Moreau, had signed without reading during a frenzied flight to Boston. It stated, in careful, airtight legalese, that any platform developed using my proprietary risk model remained my intellectual property unless a direct transfer agreement was executed. No such agreement had ever been filed. In plain English, Virion was using my system illegally. And I had the signed contract, time-stamped, archived, enforceable. That wasn't a dagger. That was a landmine. The kind you don't step on. The kind you hear click. I pulled up the file, scanned it once for good measure, then drafted the email. Subject: Intellectual Property Violation Notice, Aegis Protocol, enclosed documentation. I didn't send it to Gregory, I didn't send it to Elise, I sent it to Virion's interim chief compliance officer. CC'd legal, BCC'd Julian. I attached the signed contract with a short, clinical message, no threats, no demands, just the facts. Then I hit send. I didn't pour a drink. I didn't check my phone. I sat there, hands folded, watching the skyline outside the vault as the first rays of morning cracked through the glass towers of Manhattan. Somewhere, deep inside Virion's legal department, the countdown had already begun. This wasn't revenge. This was ownership. And Gregory Price was about to find out what happened when you tried to steal from the woman who built your kingdom, brick by brick. By 9 a.m., my inbox showed 12 new messages. By 9:15, my phone flashed with 2 missed calls from Virion's legal team. I didn't answer either. At 10:03, a curt, rattled email arrived. Subject: Request for clarification. Intellectual Property Clause. I replied with a single sentence. You'll find it on page 14, paragraph 3, subsection B. At 10:48 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A blocked number this time. I let it ring once, then picked up. Gregory's voice hit the line like static. What the hell is this, Samantha? There it was, the old tone, that venom-laced mix of entitlement and disbelief, the same voice he'd once used on interns who forgot to copy him on emails, the same edge he'd sharpened on junior staff who dared ask about bonuses. Now, it was turned on me. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. I didn't raise my voice, didn't match his anger. It's a reminder, I said evenly, that I built the bones of your system, and you never paid for them. He cursed under his breath, the kind of hissed obscenity you reserve for moments when the ground shifts beneath your feet. I waited. You're doing this out of spite. No, I replied. I'm doing it out of ownership. You threw me out of the house I built. Gregory, I'm just changing the locks. Silence. No threat, no apology, just the dead air of a man realizing the trap he'd walked into wasn't accidental. At 6 a.m. the next morning, Julian's office sent out the official press release. Pinnacle Venture Group announces exclusive launch of Aegis, the first transparent AI risk engine built for real-world compliance. Julian's name was on it. Mine wasn't. It didn't need to be. The industry knew. The clients knew. The analysts knew. Hell, even the interns refilling coffee at co-working spaces across the city knew. Because reputation moves faster than scandal. And everyone had watched me disappear. Now, they were watching me rise. By Friday afternoon, Virion's stock had plummeted by 28%. Their spring product launch, the one Gregory had been hyping for months, was officially postponed indefinitely. And Elise Moreau, she, resigned to pursue new opportunities. According to an internal memo that leaked before noon, Gregory lasted 3 more days. On Monday morning, the board issued a sterile, soulless statement about visionary leadership during critical growth phases. Translation: They kicked him out and slammed the door behind him. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just moved on. I spent the next week fine-tuning Aegis with Julian's core strategy team. Julian offered me an executive seat. I declined. I didn't need a title. I took the equity instead. The messages started pouring in. From ex-colleagues, old clients, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some congratulated me. Some asked if I was hiring. A few tried to rewrite history, painting themselves as loyal allies all along. I replied to none of them, not out of malice, out of clarity. When you've walked through fire, you don't go back to shake hands with the ones who handed you the match. By the end of the following week, Aegis was live in pilot programs with 3 Fortune 500 clients. Not a beta test, not a soft launch. Real deployment, real results. It outperformed Virion's now sidelined product in every critical metric. Accuracy, speed, compliance assurance. The boardrooms whispered first, then the industry press followed. Not with breaking news headlines, but with the kind of low hum that said, "This is who owns the future now." I didn't issue a statement, didn't post a cryptic victory quote on LinkedIn, didn't retweet the analysts who called Aegis a paradigm shift. I stayed in my workspace, whiteboard clean, servers humming, refining every last line of code like it was my first day on the job. Because this wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming the narrative. Gregory Price's name disappeared from the industry press within a month. Not in scandal, not in disgrace. He just faded, like he'd never mattered. Aegis became the new standard. Julian's firm doubled its valuation before the next quarter closed. And me? I didn't take a promotion, didn't throw a victory party, didn't stand on a stage to accept a shiny award. I simply sat alone in my new office, a sleek, glass-lined space on Pinnacle's executive floor, staring at a whiteboard with one word scrawled in the center. Next. Because legacy isn't built on applause, it's built on ashes. And mine had only just begun.